All right, Second Corinthians chapter 9. Forgot this one yesterday. We're continuing Paul's 2 chapters on giving, and we just see the heart of God in how he has given us an opportunity to, one, enter into his work by the discipline of giving, but we also see how he wants us to do it. So, Paul's writing for them to give towards needs in Jerusalem, which there was a famine. And in the first few verses, he's stirring them up um, to give by basically encouraging them. He says he's been boasting about the Corinthians to the people of Macedonia, saying how eager they were to give. And so he's just reminding them of that because when he was with them, they were very eager to give. And so he's saying, hey, look, when you guys got excited to give, they got excited to give. And so he's stirring them up to love and good works. Hebrews 10:24. And so he's reminding them of that zeal. And he also says if they come with him to get the gift and they don't give, it's going to be humiliating. And so they should give. He didn't want them to feel like that's all it was about, or that when he got there, he didn't want to have to spend a lot of time on it. Um, and most of all, he didn't want them to feel like they had to give. This is not an exaction or a taxation. A lot of people treat giving as a taxation. You join a church, you have to start giving 10%, and it's like your payment into the church. But that's not in the New Testament. The 10% is an Old Testament rule, and actually it was more than 10%. But the point is now our giving as Christians should be the way that God has freely given to us. We should freely give back to him. And really, he doesn't need our gifts. It's the rest of the world. See, God takes care of his children. And how does he take care of them? One, through their own hard work and diligence, but when hard times fall on them, how are they cared for? It's through the giving of other Christians. Now, there's also benefits to the giver. Verse 6, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Sowing is the process of giving. You're investing into the eternal kingdom. You're investing into financial things. You're just investing your money. You're sowing it. You're investing your time. And if you do that bountifully, you'll reap bountifully, which is almost so obvious, doesn't need to be said, but it's still a beautiful principle. If a farmer just puts out a few seeds because he feels rich with all his seeds in his barn, well, he's not going to get a big crop. But the next door neighbor farmer, he puts out all his seed because he says, this seed is no good to me in my barn. I need it in the ground. He puts it in the ground. He has a huge harvest. And so we need to, as Christians, learn this principle well. We need to sow bountifully, not just financially, sow our time bountifully into things that will reap eternal benefits. Another principle, you must give as you've decided in your heart. Well, two principles here. One, each one must give. So every Christian should give. This is a spiritual discipline for all of us. And you must give self-motivated. So if you want to give a certain amount, you give this certain amount. So this kind of cuts both ways. One, when you feel the desire to give, you need to give. You need to be honest with yourself and give as much as you decided in your heart. But two, you must decide in your heart. And you must not feel coerced or motivated by external factors. So when Jesus talks about giving in Matthew chapter 6, he says, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. In other words, Don't overthink it, is what he wants. And so it's the same idea here. And it reminds us that God loves a cheerful giver. And the reason for that is God is a cheerful giver. So when we give, we imitate him. And verse 8 is a wonderful promise. God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times, you may abound in every good work. That's a lot of alls. So he gives you all grace for all things, so that you will be content. God's going to provide for your needs. What would that change about your life if you believed this promise that God's going to take care of every single need of yours? What does that free you up to concern yourself with? Hopefully, it's eternal work, every good work. God will and has supplied seed to the sower and bread for food, will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness. Verse 10. So, God who is the one who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food. He also will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness. So he will provide you with the financial means to give financially, to be invested in his eternal work by caring for the needs of the saints and growing the righteousness of other people. That's what this is saying. I mean, it's just incredible. It's like there's money's getting moved all over the church, the larger church, and you get money. So it's like God gives you financial resources so that you can get in the game. And you get in the game by giving, and you watch your money work in the kingdom. And that's the economy that we're brought into. Now, when he says he increases the harvest of your righteousness, this is the harvest of your financial means, but also spiritual means. I think there's a direct parallel here with how you treat your money and how you treat spiritual things. And money is just a tangible way of living out how we do spiritual things. So if we hold tight to our money, we probably hold tight to our time. If we're generous with our money, we're generous with our time. And so as we see our money produce righteousness, our time given to the eternal kingdom can produce righteousness. That's why he says in verse 11, you will be enriched in every way to be generous in every way, which through us will produce thanksgiving. So we're blessed to be a blessing. And when we give financially, it doesn't just benefit us financially. You know, people take this too far. It may be that because you're a good giver, God blesses you with more money. It makes sense to me that he would do that, but we can't take that promise to the bank because we never know as Christians what kind of trials and afflictions face us. But you can expect that. Just it's not a promise that you take to the bank, because I don't want this to be a health and wealth prosperity gospel. Because they would say the reason you don't have enough money is because you don't have enough faith. No, God is sovereign and he decides to give who he gives what he gives to. But the principle is, if you learn to give, you will be blessed with more financially. That may not always be the case, especially in the timing that you want. And especially if your heart is just for the financial gain. I think if, God knows the heart. So if he sees you give and you're a good giver and you give out of a pure heart and a cheerful heart, then why wouldn't he bless you with more so that you can give more? But I don't think that's a formula to manipulate God. Of course, you can't use it for that. So here's some benefits of giving, starting in verse 12. One, it supplies needs for the church, but also it produces praises to God. So this results in the glory of God. This also is obedience on display. So when you give, he says, they will glorify God because of your submission that comes from your confession of the gospel of Christ. So these are Christians that have committed themselves to Christ, and in that, they are showing their submission. So obedience is on display when you give. Now, this is as a church. We don't want to seek recognition through our individual gifts, but how cool is a church that we're known to be a generous church? So this is how you should give in your church body. And then lastly, it prompts them to pray. Verse 14, while they long for you and pray for you because of the surpassing grace of God upon you. Thanks be to God for this inexpressible gift. Verse 15 is about Jesus Christ. God has freely given us his own son. So that should motivate us to give generously in this way. Giving, in other words, is really a privilege that we get to express our love as God has expressed his love in Jesus Christ. We get to express our love through parting with our money, giving it to eternal work so that we can see the harvest of righteousness increase. So just to recap, your giving should follow the reap and sow principle. Your giving should be consistent. In other words, you should give on a consistent basis. This is not just a one-time thing. This is a spiritual discipline that you should continue to do. Your giving should be self-motivated, and your giving should be cheerful. And that's all from chapter 9. And then real quick, from chapter 8, your giving should be proportional to your own income. It should be sacrificial. Again, it should be a free will, and you should see it as a privilege. So which of those things do you need to work on in your giving today?